Hello, my name is Ahad Hussain, and welcome to Titan Alumni Talks, a weekly podcast where we talk to alumni about their journey as a Titan and where they are today. Having been established in 1957, CSUF is now nearing 300,000 alumni. Because we are a family of Titans, we should ask the question, who are our alumni? Join me every week as we meet some of our CSUF alumni from various industries to answer this question. For today's episode, we have Rickey Glenn as our guest. He graduated from Cal State Fullerton with a bachelor's in finance with a concentration in real estate in 2008, and he now works as a senior merchandise manager at the Titan Shops on campus. So welcome, Rickey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So the first question I wanted to ask you is, what do you do as a senior merchandise manager on campus?
Well, senior merchandise manager, it's a pretty broad role, but the gist of it is that I oversee a large portion of the campus store operations. That would include technology and accessories, art and school supplies, along with office supplies, also gifts and apparel, so a lot of the logoed apparel that you see around campus. Most of it, I would say 80% of it is probably flows through the campus store. Also food and beverages, so the snacks that you see around campus, usually more than likely it's going to come from Titan Shops. Also the Irvine Center campus store falls under my belt as well. So it's a broad set of categories, if you will, throughout the campus store operation.
I see. So you take care of both the Irvine store and the Cal State Fullerton one, the Fullerton campus, along with like the other parts in Cal State Fullerton or like the other shops?
That's sort of divvied out in a sense. I mean, we do have managers underneath myself and other places in the store that will handle it. But we do have, say for instance, like the Bree Stop that's over at the Langsdorff Hall, and then also the Yum that's over in the TSU. Those are managed by our food convenience manager. But that individual will fall under the general merchandise umbrella, which is my arena.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I didn't know that. It all like connects back.
It all connects back in some kind of way.
I see. Yeah. So let's go back to when you got into Cal State Fullerton. Tell me about the experience on how did you get there? Were you a high school student graduating into it, or did you transfer from a community college?
I was a high school student beginning my journey here at Cal State Fullerton. And so just to give you a little bit of background on that, I was a high honors student in high school. I did a lot of different things, different programs. I was involved with different things. I had good grades. I was connected with students that were like-minded like myself. But that didn't exactly translate over to school here, I think, for a number of different reasons. For whatever reason, I really struggled my first couple of semesters. Maybe even my first couple of years, I struggled a bit to kind of find my way, find my path, and really get used to being in this new environment, right? High school for me, my graduating class was no more than 60 students.
Where'd you graduate from?
And I graduated from a school that was called South Bay Lutheran High School, and that's in Inglewood, California. We're talking about going from a small school, predominantly black, and then here I am on this gigantic campus. At the time, it was maybe about 25, maybe 27,000 students, but still, you're talking about a significant leap. So that was one of the reasons, I think, where, it took me a while to adjust and figure things out in terms of academically as a student.
And did it take time for you to adjust with your major or no?
It definitely took time to adjust with my major, in the sense where when I got here to Cal State Fullerton, my major was electrical engineering. So one of the hardest degrees that you can probably take advantage of. That only lasted maybe about a year and a half. I got to calculus 250 and I called it quits.
250 was difficult. I admit that. 250 was hard.
250 is a whole nother different animal, a whole nother set of derivatives and all that crazy stuff. And I just decided that wasn't my path. I thought it was because there were a couple of engineers in my family on my mom's side. And it sounded good to me. And I enjoy doing things with my hands every now and then. I understood computers a little bit. So I thought that was my path. So that's where I went for. But that's never a bad thing. You figure yourself out along the way, and decisions change. But anyways, after that, I jumped into finance. And my finance path, I think, led me partially into the career path that I am in now.
I see. So what year did you change into finance?
It had to have been 2004 is when I changed it. So I stopped school for a little bit. So that was a part of my journey also. And, that's one thing. I like to tell that story because I know there are students, their path is not easy educationally. And look at myself. I was a high honor student in high school, but that wasn't the same picture in college. So I like to tell that story. I like to tell, hopefully authentic, different kind of a story, especially with what I had to experience here. So yeah, I got pretty deep into the process, decided that academic lane wasn't for me. I struggled a bit. I also worked a lot. I worked roughly about 40 hours the whole entire time I was in school. So that was another factor, something that I don't recommend for any student. But I don't know, all in a nutshell, I mean, that kind of changed the trajectory of things. I guess I hit one of the pivotal moments in my life where I said, okay, engineering is not for me. Maybe finance is. I think some other things happen, and then away with it we go.
So give me a timeline of that situation. So you started school what year?
I started school in 99.
So Cal State Fullerton in 99.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then when did you decide to take the break?
So I took the break maybe about 2 years after that.
I see. So around 2001. And then you came back around 2004.
I would say almost a couple of years later I went back into school. I wasn't classless in that time frame. I think I took some classes at Fullerton College, but I was only taking maybe a class at a time, and still trying to juggle a workload.
Yeah.
Again, that's not something that I ever, really recommend for students who are trying to find their way academically, but that was the struggle that I was met with. So school really didn't really become very serious to me until I would say maybe 2005, and that's about when I met my now wife. And that's when things became real, and the finance degree really started to apply itself. I started to enjoy school academically. It took off from there.
So what was the process of getting off of school and then coming back on? Was it a little difficult? Did you have to take your time, or was it relatively easy?
Yeah. No. So, because I was never kicked out, right? Oh, okay. I was never, I don't know the right words for that, but it was my choice. It was my choice to step away from school and go into the workforce, if you will, and apply myself there, because I thought that I was great at what I was doing at that time. So yeah, it wasn't something where I was shoved out. That was a personal choice.
So if you leave, it's easy for you to get back in then?
Yeah, especially if you're not. I think my grades were intact to the point where I could just walk back into the mix. I hadn't completely taken myself out of school, right? I was still taking a few units over at Fullerton College.
Because I've never experienced how it would be to take a gap year, or a few years in your case. I feel like some students might think about what if I do decide to take a year off? What's the process coming back in? But it seems like it was relatively easy in terms of the school allowing you to get back in.
Yeah, it was relatively easy. I think as long as you stay on top of your grades to a degree, and it's not something where you were kicked out or shoved out for a lack of it, right? I think it should be relatively easy. I mean, that's more of something from an academic advisor. I can't really speak, too deeply on that. But things were left intact so that I can I can transition easily back to school.
I see. So where were you working at? Were you starting work right out of high school, or were you working before in high school?
I was actually working quite a bit before high school.
Oh, before high school.
So
okay.
I built a strong work ethic early on. Just simple things. In my neighborhood, there was a lady, I would water her grass, I would pull her weeds, and take out her trash, and it was maybe 2 or 3 neighbors that I did that for. So early on, 13, 14, I was already starting to learn how to make a little bit of money for myself, be a little bit more independent, that kind of a thing. My dad really, he prided himself on how he raised me in that sense, right? So I think, naturally that's how I started to behave a bit. But fast forward a bit, my first kind of a real job before I even got into high school was working for Staples office supply store. And that was a job that carried through into college, I would say all the way through 2001, 2002. So I worked for Staples for some time. And when I look back on Staples now, that was a pivotal turning point for me in terms of where I would end up right now, right? Because Staples is a little more retail based.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
That customer service, that sales aspect of it, that really gave me a firm base, but also Staples gave me a different kind of confidence, right? Not everyone was my age was working at a Staples. And so in Staples, I think I want to say my job title was a business machines specialist. So how does that sound? I mean, you're 18, 19, 20 years old and you're a business machines specialist, right?
The people who come to you aren't like your age. They're a lot older.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I really had a sense of just, okay, ownership to that, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like I was good at it. I think that built and bridged the mentality for what I started to do truly as a professional.
So when you got back into college, when you said in like around 04, 05, were you still working or were you just working in general at that time or
no? No, eventually I stepped away from Staples. I think that was just too much. And no knock on Staples. That's not what the point of it is. But as a student and, people around you, we have to be careful about. So, here I am, I'm working for Staples and I'm working 40 hours, sometimes 45 hours. That's not a good mix. That's not a good balance academically. It's just not.
It should be more of the opposite, where you spend the 40 hours on school and then maybe your side hours.
Exactly. So that probably ended up being the number one reason why I struggled so much. Yeah. But I didn't know that at that time. I thought I needed to work to provide for myself, to be independent. I probably could have gotten the support and help, but I don't think I even asked for it. Yeah. I don't think I ever even asked for it.
I mean, there's a huge catch once you turn 18 because you are an adult, but you also have to go to college. That's the social mantra. But at that point, you need to be independent while also going to school. They want you to do two full-time things at the same time. Coming from a place where you were dependent and only spending like part-time at school, like in high school, you were under the role of your parents. You only went to school in the mornings and that was it. But then you transitioned to taking a full-time job and a full-time academic career. And it could take like a big toll on people working the 40 hours, like right out of there. It just seems like to anybody, honestly. Luckily that I don't have to work 40 hours. I work on campus at the alumni office. Work over there is a little flexible with the hours. And I can also work from home, so it's never too much of okay, now I got to commute back and forth. I got to make sure I'm in on time and do all that. So I feel like in that part, I'm lucky that I don't have to worry about that too much.
Well, I think students in general now are lucky in that sense where the institution has put those guardrails in place and they said, well, yeah, we will allow our students to work, but can't work more than 20 hours. So we're going to put that cap in place for you. Now, that's not to say that students won't go and get a second job and they feel like they need to fulfill their needs in a certain way. They may go and get 2 or 3 jobs, but at least at the institutional level. And then as a partnership, ASC and Titan Shops, I mean, we are speaking that same language and saying, hey, we're going to cap you off at 20 so that you can have the proper balance in between work and education. Because most students will have to work. Most students will have to earn some kind of wage so that they can just fulfill those basic necessities.
Yeah, even if it's like side money or lunch money, and it builds good work ethic too if you're able to manage multiple things and get a feel for your career. Because like in your case, if you didn't have to work, if there was no need for it, then who knows, you might have not gone back to college or maybe stuck with electrical engineering.
True.
And not changed to finance.
Yeah.
So what particularly made you change to finance? Was it the job at Staples?
I think it was a combination of the job at Staples, the high degree of difficulty in the engineer field, but also I think when I jumped over to finance, it just felt a little bit more fluid. There were 1 or 2 classes where I just knew that it was for me, and it had to have been I think it was finance 330, which would have been a corporate finance. And so that's where you start to look at the books of the company, right? The income statement, the balance sheet, all of that good stuff. And that really, I really felt at home. I was excited for it. I think then and there I knew that, the finance lane, and how could I apply that to retail, which is retail. I knew it already. I knew it and I understood it. And it wasn't so much that I just wanted to do that one thing, but I knew it so well. And I told myself, okay, why not? Let's go for it.
Like it just clicked with you, just something that was matched.
It just matched.
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect way to say it. It just matched. It just fit. Yeah. Yep.
So how were like the math classes that you had to take with it? Because I know that's like the universal sign of, oh my God, no more math classes. And with you didn't like the calculus 250 classes. So yeah. How did that work?
So strange you say that, because you think about it, right? Okay, I go from engineering to finance. I didn't really go from harder to easier necessarily, right? almost the equivalent. I would say engineering is a degree harder than finance. So I didn't go after something that was necessarily easier. I just think that, to your point earlier, it just matched. It just felt right. It felt good to me. I don't know. It's not the same math, but it is math.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not derivative math,
Yeah.
right? It's
not
more so
multivariable calculus.
plus this, minus this, and then you get a net income. And I seem to enjoy that a bit.
I did take a class in business math or business calculus. So it did have to deal with a bit of derivatives just to find like the underlying price, or I forgot what it was exactly, but it was somewhere along that line.
Mm-hmm.
And I did also take calculus before that. And even though it did have a bit of derivatives, it was a lot more fun thinking about it in business applications instead of here's just a problem, you know?
Okay.
It was more applicable to real life. And I would just see, oh, okay, I can see where it would work if I did try and open up like a small business, then this is where the income would come in.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, okay, the derivative of x squared is 2x, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot easier with that. And then what made you do with an emphasis in real estate?
Again, there was another family member or two that were in real estate, so I had some exposure to it. But also out of high school, I talked a little bit about being on several different programs. Well, I was on a program where like you get exposure to what you think that your career path might be, and for roughly a week, I think it was, I got a chance to spend some time with realtors.
Oh, okay.
And I got a chance, I may have been about 16 or 17 at the time. I got a chance to see a little bit of the lay of the land, even though I didn't really understand real estate to that degree or what they were doing and, you know, all of the different components that came along with it. But it seemed interesting. So I had a little bit of a passion there for real estate. So when finance became a real thing for me, and I said, well, I want to learn real estate a little bit. Maybe that'll come in handy a little later on, which it did to a degree. But yeah.
I see. So that program that you're talking about, where they sort of pair you up with people in the career field that you're interested in,
Yep.
Was that specifically for your high school or was that district-wide?
I think I want to say that was for my high school. Yeah, yeah, that was for the high school.
Because that seems like pretty interesting and like really beneficial in the way they do that, since when you go to college and you're expected to have a major already chosen for you, you know, there's no, I mean, there is like a backing out like you did, and like a lot of people do, but some people just find it like a waste of time to back out, or they think of it as the sunk cost fallacy. I'm already done with 2 years of, let's say electrical engineering, might as well just finish it, you know, instead of going back, getting your lower divisions done for finance. So people fall into that because it's, why not just finish what I started instead of trying to change it? Because then some people think it's a snowball effect. You change it once, you'll change it again, and then you'll never graduate or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's a really good idea that they're doing that, and they did that with you just to help you get an idea of what you might do.
You get a little bit of a base. I wish that I would have embraced that a bit more and understood the value in it. I'm not sure I understood that value of that type of exposure at that time.
Yeah.
I think if there was a deeper understanding of it, I think it could have paid a little bit more dividends in a sense, you know, and not necessarily monetarily, but it just, you know, it would have gone longer.
It almost makes you think that there should be a middle ground after high school and before college.
Yeah.
Like junior college, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my friends did that just in order to get their bearing. Instead of spending 2 years at a university as in an undeclared major, just spend 2 years at a junior college and then go on from there, you know?
Yeah, transitional. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I like it. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea that they do. So how did you end up getting the job at Titan Shops?
So at some point, I figured Staples was just too much. Even though I was very good at it, I left on a high note. It was just too much for a student to work those kind of hours. And
did they not let you schedule only 20 hours a week, or did they force you to be like low full time?
I'm not too sure. And no knock on those individuals. I just think that, I want to say they didn't care enough, but they didn't ask enough about my journey. I mean, they were really, and as they should be, they were really concerned about
their business,
the business, and where that needed to be. And if you have someone that's strong, then we need you here.
Yeah.
Oh, you 40 hours? Oh, we think you can fit school in. I think it was just
had their priorities in the wrong area.
Yeah, right. And I wish there was someone who kind of pulled me back right there and say, hey, you know, you might want to rethink this. So anyways, left Staples, and I decided not to work for a while because I had a lot of money saved up from working at Staples. So I would say roughly almost about a year later, I started working at the campus store. And that was a turning point for me. Just felt like a good place. There were good people there. It felt real and it felt authentic. It didn't feel so sales and quota related like how I was over at Staples. And I advanced very fast there. I would say just within the span of 5 months, I became a lead associate, and then I became a supervisor.
Oh, okay.
And so I was able to work 30 hours. But that was a manageable 30 hours. My boss at that time sort of kept me in check, right, with that. He says, yeah, of course, like I can work you more, but how much are you going to dedicate to your studies? And I heard that a little bit. So the campus store kind of kept me in line a little bit more to, where the trajectory where I needed to be.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And so what did you start off as a campus store before going to the lead associate?
Well, I was in the general merchandise department, specifically supplies.
Oh, okay.
So I was a supplies associate.
Okay.
At that time. So all the pens and pencils, school supplies,
So just
different
taking
things
care
like
of all
that.
that.
Yep.
I see.
I had some strength in merchandising, obviously that customer service element coming from a larger retailer like Staples. So I was able to apply some of those skills, those hard and soft skills, to working at Titan shops.
Especially with that much experience, like it's just a must. It's like
yeah,
a perfect fit.
Exactly. So I was on a path right there. And again, going back to my background and being a little bit of a workaholic, that was a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it also seems like you would have saved a lot of time and stress by working at the Titan shop instead of like outside, because like just getting off campus, driving to your work, getting there on time, and then starting over. This is just a walk from your class to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just didn't realize that at first. I literally live right across the street from campus on the associated side.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, once I started working for the bookstore, I could just walk right into work, walk back, take some classes. In terms of schedules, there was just a lot of continuity that was there, and things just somewhat fit. So I always recommend that students work here on campus somewhere. I mean, because they're going to get the right kind of nurturing. They're going to have the right kind of environment. They're going to be amongst people who are like-minded like them, that are doing some of the same things that they're doing. So it totally makes sense to work on campus. Wish I had started that a lot early on.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you live across the street. So when did you move there?
I actually, after a semester in from my
First time.
from coming into school, I worked. I lived around campus.
Oh, okay, I see. And you just stayed there during your break, and then you just you still lived there.
Yeah, I had a good little nucleus of friends. So even during the summer months, we sort of figured things out. Some of those people are still my friends to this day. Yeah. So we all seem to help each other figure out our living situation. So that seemed to work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then living on living right by campus, it also takes off a lot of that stress too. So you're able to kill like a lot of that commute time that people have to worry about. Like my commute, I commute from Corona and Riverside, so that takes me an hour each way. That's an hour, but getting ready, coming back home, like de-stressing after the long drive. So yeah, that takes like a toll. But then it is convenient when people are able to live like near campus and also work on campus.
Mm-hmm.
I also recommend that to anyone, because you're also working with people who go to the same school, who have similar schedules. At Staples, you might have like possibly met another student. It could have been at like a different school, but most people working there aren't students trying to balance two things.
Mm-mm.
But then everyone here at like the Titan store, at the alumni office, wherever they're at, maybe at the ASI or the TSU, all students. They all work here. They all go to school here.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of the reason why when I worked at Staples, there was a lack of understanding there, because you're right.
Yeah.
I never worked alongside a student or even someone who was close to me in age. I don't think so. And most of those individuals that were working there, that's what they did. That was their job. That's how they made ends meet. And I just didn't come across very many students who, college-bound students that were working on a degree. It just wasn't there.
So it seems like you had two main jobs, just the one at Staples and then like with moving up, and then the one at Titan Shops with moving up. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Seems like a pretty solid thing, not moving around too much.
Yeah.
Kind of easy. Just sticking with one thing, and it's like,
Well, when you feel like you're good at something and you are the kind of individual. I'm a loyal individual.
Yeah.
Once I say I'm committed to something and I'm going to be a part of it, I'll really try and be a part of it. I guess Staples got the best of me in that sense. I stayed with them for quite some time, and even Titan Shops. Titan Shops has really worked out for me. I applied myself, and I advanced through the organization, and here I am today.
Yeah.
And then being able to tell my story to students who work for me or work alongside me, and they can kind of get it firsthand on what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
So
because not only did you work in their position, but you also went to school with them, like doing the same thing alongside.
As much as they may not realize it, I am them, or I was them. I'm a perfect example of having to make it work, regardless if you finish in 3 years or if you finish in 8 years. I'm an example of that, for sure. I think there's some programs that are coming on here on campus where it's a little bit more mentorship based. And that's one thing I always recommend for anyone that's in the academic lane, or just period, you just want to be a more productive member of society, right? Get yourself a mentor. Get someone that is, they care about your growth and the value of you being a better person, right? And they can give you the kind of guidance and help you get to those skills that are needed for you to be successful. So I recommend you have a mentor, but then also have someone that's equal to you, right? You guys share similar goals. You may not be on the same academic path, but you guys keep each other in check, right?
Yeah.
It's just that peer-to-peer, competitiveness. You need that. And then I always recommend that all of us as individuals, we mentor someone else, right? I think that really gives you like this nice little fair balance, right?
Yeah.
Get mentored, have the competitive with someone that's equal to you, mentor someone else. You passing information along. I think if the campus really develops that even more, I think we're going to see, better students. They're going to be more in tune to things. They're going to understand like the ebbs and flows, because all those components are kind of working in that sense. At least I think so. Yeah.
I mean, now that you mentioned the competitiveness, and then going back to 250, I actually had a friend named Josh. He was an electrical engineer, I believe, and since I'm minoring in math and physics, we had our lower division physics together and then our maths together. And just like the past semester, we had 250 together. And we were competing. It was a big competition. We would get the exams back. We sat next to each other in the front. And it's a fun type of competition, because even though we weren't the same major, it's just who could get the better grade, who could just get bragging rights until the next exam. I mean, I got the bragging rights on all 3 of the exams because I know he's going to listen. But just putting it out there.
No,
but,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Just to put him out there. But so it is like a fun type of competition. And then with the mentorship, because they do like the big brother, big sister type of thing, but they don't really advertise it as much as they could. You kind of have to put yourself out there, which is kind of what I believe that the big brother, big sister type of thing should do for freshmen. There's some people who could go out there on their own and take care of themselves and find the ropes, or use the ropes themselves. But some people just need a bit of extra guidance, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just everyone is different. So some people who are more introverted or more excluded to themselves, that's where the mentorship could help them meet different students, join clubs, maybe even like a fraternity or sorority, and just help them make an impact on their own lives.
Especially for that individual that's a little bit more timid and introverted. And because you're a little bit more introverted, you may not be exposing yourself to the resources that are available out there. So we need to find some way to reach out to those individuals rather than wait for them to gain the confidence to come to us.
Because by the time they do that, it's like they already have the confidence to do everything on their own.
So or they never got that confidence either.
That's true.
I think I was one of those. I was strong at what I was doing work-wise, right? But I think I was quite introverted in a lot of different ways.
I see. So you didn't join like many clubs on campus?
I didn't join a lot of clubs.
You didn't? Okay.
I didn't. Maybe 1 or 2, but I can't even think what the names are. And so obviously I didn't do them for that long. But maybe and more than likely I didn't come across as introverted to a lot of people, but for sure introverted. So I like your thought in how do we reach out to those individuals? How do we get connected with them? Let them know that there is a bit of a network, a nucleus that's around for them to thrive with, right?
It's something to do with orientation. Like maybe if orientation wasn't only a one-day thing, maybe it was like a weekend thing, then you get to know, because there are orientation leaders, so maybe it was like you get to know the freshmen better, and understand them, to make it a more personal school, you know, because it is a commuter school.
It is a commuter school.
And even though you did live across the street, most people do drive an hour around there. So our biggest goal, I know mine for sure, it's I just need a rest at home because there's nothing I can do here. So doing that, it keeps me away from all of the clubs, all of the sports, and it just like turns me away from it, turns me off from it. And I mean, like, that just happened. So as a freshman going in, even if you are commuting, if they found a way to like get the dorms set up for like a weekend to get all the freshmen on campus, to have a little bit of a bonding experience, sort them by major or even like mix and match, just to make sure that they do have, because then you were mentioning that have someone on an equal level. So that would be the freshmen
That will
alongside
give you the
them.
equal level.
Yeah. And then like there would be the orientation leaders who could be the mentors or like supplemental big brother, big sister at the orientation, you know, like sophomores, juniors, helping them out.
I think it's good in there. I don't recall when I came to the campus of there being a welcome day. Right. Okay. We have a welcome day, and it's big and it's grand, and the campus puts a lot of time and effort into it. I see that connection is starting to come on a little bit. Orientation, I think that we can take an even deeper dive, but even orientation has grown a bit, right, in the way that they try and connect with the student, and almost making it kind of require for parents to come, or at least encouraging the parents to come. So then, you know, you have that guardianship, right, and they're intertwined into like that student's education at a very, very early age. But, you know, on the flip side of that is, how can we influence a little bit more of that peer-to-peer engagement? And so you really bring it all together. I mean, because all sorts of conversations come up with your peers, right? Yeah. And, you know, I think that's just influencing, or that would influence growth within itself.
I feel like as a society, we're moving from a more individualistic to a more group and community sense, you know, where I think the baby boomers were called like the me generation because of how narcissistic they were and just self-centered. And so it was all like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm just going to go to college on my own. I don't need anyone. But now it's like, all right, let's all get together and let's work on things together. So I feel like that's beneficial in terms of you can get a lot of things out of that. That people don't really like see, or they just never done it before.
I mean, just in general, things are changing in that sense. I mean, even once you get into the professional world, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking that, you know, I think the company, it's WeWorkspace or something like that. It's like more of like this social working space.
Yeah.
Everything is kind of like more social or collaborative. Even the places where we go and eat, right? Kind of more mess hall based, but organized mess hall, right? It's like there's benches, and there's not like, just these tables that only 4 people can sit at. I don't know, it's a bench where like now. I'm gonna end up sitting next to a stranger for sure. To your point, I think society is moving in that direction. I think us here at Cal State Fullerton, students and professionals, I think we're starting to see that transition. It's a slow transition, but I think it's starting to happen. I mean, individuals like you and myself, we can help nudge that. Yeah. And
it's a thing you see in hindsight, so it's easier to see how from your generation and when you were going to Cal State Fullerton without having any orientation, and seeing it now, you can see the gap. And then like we might not know when it's going to happen, but in 10 years from now, like maybe my kids will see the gap then, because we'll have that bit of hindsight and we'll be able to see it from there. You mentioned that you didn't do any clubs on campus. Is that like one thing that you wish you would have done instead?
Oh yeah, I wish I was far more connected on campus than what I am, because I'm connected on campus now.
Yeah.
So I talked about a good portion of my job. I would say 25 to 30% of it is really campus outreach.
Yeah.
It's really getting out there and coordinating things with different departments as a result of Welcome Day, as a result of new student orientation, but even just campus orders, large campus orders, constantly email correspondence and phone calls, different things like that. It's more intertwined here in campus than I was when I was a student.
Yeah.
And, you know, it should have been a whole lot more, right?
Yeah.
And I think I would have gotten a lot more out of the experience. It would have been an experience, and, you know, not the scary and timid thing that I made it out to be at that time.
College is sort of what you make it, you know, like some people just come in, they go out in 4, and it's just like a blur, you know. But some people, they spend more time, they make long-lasting relationships through it. They find jobs on there. Like you were able to maybe not to like the fullest extent by not joining clubs, but still like the job you found. You mentioned that you met your wife over here at that time. So there are still some like long lasting experiences that people get from it. And I feel like there's a lot of people who miss out on it, especially if the school doesn't encourage staying on campus or like going to these events, not putting as much of an emphasis as they could on doing these things as a communal group. So what advice would you give to people going into the field of finance or even electrical engineering, since you have some experience in it?
I mean, it really starts with just work ethic within yourself, and outside of trying to be a working professional, but just the work ethic and wanting to apply yourself, right? Apply yourself to a passion, even though that passion could change often. I mean, it can change once or twice throughout your 4 years or 5 years in school. One thing I would recommend is that something like engineering, which is a very tough field to be in, and even finance. I mean, latch on to others, get into those peer groups, especially as it relates to the class. Learn what they are learning, learn what they're not learning as well. Make that connection. That would be my advice, because I'm not sure that I took the time to make that connection so that academics can be that much easier for me.
I see. And then since you did mention that you left Cal State Fullerton because you felt like electrical engineering and just like academics in general weren't for you, what advice would you give to other students who also think with that mindset, who are on the fence about going to their next semester and maybe just thinking I'll find a regular job and just work with that?
Still, again, I think it comes down to who you're socializing with and really building a much broader network of individuals that can be goal-oriented. Because I think you're influenced by that quite a bit. You know, for those individuals like who find themselves in that situation, like information is what you need. You need information about what it could mean to have a career and to prosper in that career, and that having a great career could lead to having a good family dynamic. All of these different things. I think individuals who are in that predicament, I just think that they maybe have a lack of information, and I think that's what the missing key is. I can only mostly take it from myself and what I understood and what I didn't understand when I felt like I needed to transition from academics to just only working, right? I thought that it couldn't work for me. I thought that what I was doing, what I thought professionally at that time was good enough, and I thought that my growth was going to come from there. And not that it can't, but I didn't have the know-it-all to understand that education could propel me a lot further and a lot faster.
Because it could be like a lot of times there are people who say that higher education isn't for everyone, and that kind of makes sense, where you do need different classes of society to build a proper structure. Not everyone can be college educated, be business owners, and be at the top. You need people on the bottom of the pyramid to support everyone at the top. So I feel like some people fall into the mindset that what if I am the bottom of the pyramid, and they underachieve because of false expectations they put on themselves, or they don't like properly just assess their potential at that time. So, and it could be with their major too. They could be struggling with their major and then seeing, I'm not good at this, I don't like this, maybe academics in general isn't for me. And then they go from one specific education category to a broad sense of college and learning isn't for me. Because that's what college is. College is learning. And college is actually like, a lot of people miss out on the chance to understand that college just isn't just classes. You take it for a subject that you have an interest in. So even if it is not your major, even if you just want to learn about, because I know the kinesiology has like wrestling or like bowling, if you just want to learn about anything, college is there to participate in and sort of force you, because there's self-learning. You can learn anything online, but it kind of keeps you, that's what you pay for, to keep you in that structured mindset and let you go through things. So I feel like people miss out on that opportunity that it's to learn. People like learning. Everyone likes learning. There's not a single person who doesn't. It's just the topic. What topic do you like learning about? So you just need to find that topic. And I feel like people miss out on that when they take their GEs. They, like for me in computer science, a lot of my friends took GEs that were related to computer science or maybe with business. But what I did, I spread out to everything. I'm taking women and gender studies right now, philosophy and psychology. And one of them, I just took a business calc class just because I wanted to. I wanted to see how it worked. So just doing that helps me understand, like, even if I didn't like the business calculus class, I've taken it. I know what it is. And there's no more of the, oh, what is it like? I have an experience in it. I can understand, like, the basics of it now. So I feel like that's what high school should focus more on instead of well, definitely the core math, history, English is necessary. But after that, if there were more like straying subjects, like maybe a small business class or a small accounting class.
Or taxes.
Taxes, yeah, like something, yeah, because there's a lot of things where people don't know.
Yeah.
And there was a conversation in my women and gender studies class about a life 101 course. Should it be taught here, and should it also be required if it was taught here? And it would teach like the basics of taxing, buying a house, down payments, car payments, how it would work in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you didn't have any parents and you just tossed in there at 18, what would you do? So, because that's what life is like, you just need to get the experience. And you just build off of that experience. That's why they say your elders are always the wiser, because they just have that experience, whether it comes from real life learning or applications in classes. So I'm really happy that your high school was able to at least broaden your sense. How did they figure out if you wanted that class or wanted that career?
I think they just saw me as one of the top tier students, and that we need to give this individual resources and get them prepared and that sort of a thing. Because I wasn't the only one. Whoever, those top 10.
But how was it like for real estate for you? Did they just ask you, or was it like taking one of those? Because there's.
I think I had a choice in between.
Oh, okay.
Subject matters or like topics or whatever, and I think I chose to do real estate. Yeah.
I know there are like those tests online that you put in all your things and it says this major would be best for you. Yeah. Or like this career. So that's also like a good thing to help like juniors or seniors in college just understand this is what I like, what can I do with it. And sometimes it isn't always liking computers means you're a computer science major, but it's liking these other things might put you on that path that you just never knew was possible. And it just because life is short in terms of your learning experiences where you can actually do something about it. When you're learning in elementary, middle, and high school, you don't really have a say in the classes you take. You have to take all the core classes that they want you to. And in college, you have 4 years if you graduate when they want you to, maybe a little bit more, but then there's a social stigma against taking longer and graduating later. So you don't really have that much time to learn in that capacity in this area. Maybe if you take your master's and your PhD, then maybe, but you can't just take your master's and also take like a side class. You're focusing on your concentration. And then once you get into the workforce, you only work with your major for the most part. It isn't really, you can't really expand from there for the most part, I'm saying again, since people do it and it is possible, but generally speaking, it's a little difficult there. It was off on a tangent there, but...
No, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, since you do work on campus, would you be as involved if you didn't work on campus?
Probably not. I think working here on campus has made me a more involved individual. And I think that's because who you are working along with, right?
Yeah.
Just students like yourself, but also your peers. Just the way that the campus is integrated. You are doing things in a collaborative way. Because it's like that Titans Reach Higher goal, right? It's those things that sort of like influence that networking that happens around campus, and things need to all come together. So I don't know. I don't think so. I think working here at Cal State Fullerton is kind of giving me like that unique skill set, I guess.
So then you go to like all of the campus events, like homecoming that's coming up. You'll go to all.
I go to a good amount of them. Yep.
So you don't think you would have gone to any of those if you weren't?
If I wasn't as
if
connected
you weren't
with
working,
the campus.
if you didn't work here.
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. Yeah.
But do you think it's important for alumni of Cal State Fullerton to stay connected with the school?
Yeah, I think so. Especially if we care about trying to pave the way for other individuals, future professionals. I mean, if we even remotely connected into things like that, yeah, I mean, that's an excellent way to give back to community, give back to society. Because, like I said, I mean, I was kind of in the boat where I didn't quite understand. I wasn't able to really put things together early on. I didn't understand that until almost my 30s. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those strange things.
Because then it could be a thing where, say you started off freshman year, you went to one of the, say, homecoming, and there was an electrical engineer who was also there, and you got to speak with them as an alumni to a student in your major and your concentration. Then maybe you could have found out earlier that it wasn't really your passion, or there could have been a finance major working with real estate or working maybe even with campus stores or other stores, and just you might have met them. So I do think it's important that there is always like a connection, and that alumni just always come back, or at least visit, talk to students, be open to like any questions, and just make time for the next generation, because that's really the main thing that's coming up. If you are able to perfect this generation and mold them into the best possible shape they can be, then it's just better for society as a whole. Like, you're helping, it might be small, but it's still doing something to promote first communal structure and learning, and then also helping society. So I don't like to use the word regret. I don't want you to think that you regret anything, but like, what's one thing that you wish you would have done, or you wish you didn't do when you were in college? Like, if you were to go back and it's like, all right, I can change one thing, what would it be?
No, I would go ahead and push through. I would continue on the education. Well, no, I'll take a step back. I would not work as much.
Okay. Because then you felt like, because I do have a lot of friends who do work quite a bit, and then when they come to class, if they're able to make it to class, they're just dead tired, you know?
Yeah.
And it does affect like academic performance when you are working so much.
Oh, of course. Because, yeah, even though you're working and you're productive and you're doing something that's contributing, right?
Yeah.
That's just loss of energy. So here I was working 8 hours, or any student that's, that's working that type of, that has that type of workload. You go home and you need to rest and rejuvenate, but what happens? Your friends want to hang out.
Yeah.
So then you go and hang out with your friends, you socialize. Even socializing is an activity that can eventually wear you out. And then you try and do your cycle, get back up, go to school, go to work, and then do that for 5 days out of the week, or however much it is. It's taxing.
Yeah. And did you work in the mornings, or was it at night?
So I worked in the mornings.
Oh, okay. So you had to take more night classes.
Yep.
I see.
Yeah, evening classes.
So how was that? How was taking night classes?
The last 2 or 3 years that I was in education, I dealt with it. I handled it. I mean, at that point, I was a full-on working professional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So after 2005-ish, and my wife and I were starting to progress with our relationship and everything. I made that work. It was almost like, in a sense, I was the working professional who was doing his master's program, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I just, it started to click. I started to apply myself in a number of different ways. I got connected with other people who were in the same situation, and it just made things easier.
The thing with college, we all start out at around 18. That's like the age we all start out at, but it doesn't mean that we're all developed and ready for college at 18. We're just pushed to it. And from the people I've talked to in the past, it seems like taking some time and getting back into it and just understanding how things work when you're more mature. Like, because I had a professor who told us that by the time we start our graduate programs, like our masters, we're like 22, maybe 23. And I don't think we're even like ready for that. Like, starting 22, 23 at a professional learning experience, that seems kind of difficult, but I mean, that's how it is sometimes.
I didn't think about it that way. I guess that is quite a big jump for a 22, 23-year-old individual who's, well, I guess so, because like, okay, working at the campus store, I hear stories all the time. Those are the individuals that are more than likely, they're working with us for 2 years, so as much as 4 or 5 years. And they start to panic usually around their second semester of being a junior. And they're like, oh man, what do? I have to finish soon. What's going to happen? I have to start thinking about X, Y, Z. My friends are at this level, but I'm still here. I've noticed a lot of anxiety in between that second semester of being a junior and then being a senior. And that worry and that panic that starts to set in with what I'm going to do post graduation. And it tends to be a very real thing for them.
Because then with graduation, there's a lot of, some people are able just to find, it might just be work that they did in college, like with you, or they might just be able to get a job offer right out of college. But some people just don't know where to begin, especially with their careers. And sometimes they worry that they started too late, or they just don't know what to do with their degree in some cases, where it's, how do I apply it? What do I do with it? So working throughout high school and then going to university as an electrical engineer major and then eventually taking a break from school and then coming back, I wanted to ask how your goals and aspirations have changed throughout that time.
How they've changed?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I will say is that they probably should change. And if there's not much change, then I'm not sure that you're really pushing yourself.
Yeah.
You're not really applying yourself. Because as you read more and acquire more information, as you talk to more people, I mean, there should be some dynamic there. Like you should be changing. You should be developing as an individual and as a professional. But as far as like my journey along the academic route, it changed quite a bit along the way. Like obviously switching from being an engineer major to becoming finance, and then eventually finding a path for like, oh, okay, is there a little bit of real estate in there? Oh, like I can apply this finance degree to what I do in the retail arena, right? And then working for the campus store and being one of those members of the campus that that can contribute. So yeah, I think it fluctuated quite a bit. I think I'm a much different person from when I first started to where I am now, and it should be that way. Everyone should be fluctuating.
And it should be fluctuating in a positive. It's like, it doesn't always mean that each goal you have is better than the last one, but if you make a trend line, then it should always follow the trend line up. It should be an upward slope.
It should be an upward slope.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it should be higher highs and higher lows too, and it should just be going up for the most part. So, and how has your idea of success changed? So what's your idea of success now?
There got to a point where, early on in my academic career, I didn't understand money really, right?
Yeah.
And how that could elevate you, right? And then I did understand money, and then I started to focus on that. I thought that was the success. Now that I'm a little older and wiser, I guess that's not the end game. I think my idea of success is really the students that I'm working with. I mean, if we're talking more professionally, right?
Yeah.
So within the professional arena, I think like I get a lot of gratification just seeing my student personnel progress on, right? And I always tell them, I said, regardless if you're here on campus with us for 2 weeks or if it's 5 years, I want you to get the most of this experience. Like, I want you to enjoy it and get connected and be a part of it all, because you're only going to be a better individual once you go ahead and move on. So, I mean, I really think that my idea of success is, professionally at least, is sort of like centered around that. If we're talking outside professional and more personal life, like what does success mean to me? I don't know. It's right now I'm in a mode of gathering information, becoming smarter and becoming more intelligent, understanding the way that the world works in these ways that I didn't know that it worked, right? And I don't know. Success has become less of like this thought and this idea that I need to achieve, and it's become more of like this. Well, like I'm just successful in the individual that I become, and being connected and telling my story. Like that's the success to me.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Do you listen to any audiobooks or no?
I do. I listen to audiobooks, and I've been reading books, and I've never been much of a reader until maybe about 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I ran into an individual, and he's a big reader, right? And he feels like he gets his success, if you will, from gaining knowledge. So one of the first books that really hit home with me that I sort of enjoy the concept of it was called The Millionaire Next Door. I don't know if you ever heard of that book.
I haven't, no.
But, the millionaire next door is not who we think it is.
Oh, okay.
We tend to think that the millionaire next door is the baseball player, the celebrity, even the high-end doctor. It may not be that individual, because those individuals, they may make a lot of money, but they may also spend a lot of money, and therefore that wealth is not there. Whereas the millionaire next door could actually be our parents.
Yeah.
Right? They just own a small business. They are, they just have a regular average job, whatever it may be, but they are big savers also.
Yeah.
Now, this book was based on, some years ago, right? So I don't think that it's quite caught up time-wise. And I think that the thinking is slightly different, but I just enjoyed the fact that, when we go back to talking about the concept of success and then how money is applied in that, I think reading that book taught me that, me making a ton of money is not necessarily the end goal then.
Yeah.
It's about what I do with my money. It's about what I do with my passion and whether or not I'm passing information on so that other people can do well with their money and their finances and different things like that. But that was a book that really hit home with me, and it started my path into reading and listening to audiobooks. Yeah.
Okay, so what are some tips you would give to current Cal State Fullerton students? Like five tips.
5 tips.
Yeah, you can name it out.
Like I said, get yourself a mentor, regardless if that is mom or dad, but preferably someone else, because they're gonna have a non-biased approach about your growth in life. Find someone that you can be competitive with. That is truly where a lot of the magic is. I have that person in my life. He's like a best friend of mine. I feel like I can be competitive with him. I feel like I can, relate to him in a lot of different ways. And I think that where his success is and where my success is, we keep each other, that balance is there, right? And then also that third one that I talked about is finding someone else that you can possibly mentor, because that teaches you maturity. That teaches you to stand back and stop looking at yourself so much and then help someone else. The other thing is, the one thing that I didn't do is, get into a good network, right?
Yeah.
Talk to people, learn their stories. Don't be so worried about your own, and don't be so quick to tell your own story. I guess at the same time, be a good listener. Absorb everything that's going on around you within your network or your networks, because those can be networks can be expensive, but that will go a long way into you growing as an individual. I would say the other tip is, especially the way that my trajectory went in terms of education, I would say find that balance in between work and education. Make sure that works out for you academically first before work is, a factor. I think it will just help those individuals that are, in that space. It'll help them maintain a bit more. Yeah.
It's also like my professor said, if you do retire at 65, if you get your first job at 25, you got 40 years to work. You got 40 years to make your money. Don't try and make it early. Why do you want to work so early, right? If you do have to take out a loan, just take out a loan. Try and find a scholarship to subsidize it, make it a little easier on yourself. Because learning, you don't get a lot of time in life, especially like I said before, where you know that you're learning and it's free choice at that point, where high school, middle school, you have to take the required classes at the required times. But this, I could take a glass blowing class if I wanted to, There's literally an endless amount of opportunities I can take here just if I had a passion for it, anything that I wanted to. So yeah, that is good advice, that you should learn your own balance and make sure you don't burn out, because if you do it too quickly, then, it could lead to some problems later. And it seemed like you also did experience some of that burnout, but you were able to recuperate from it and just realize that you're able to do well academically just with a different major, and also with a different with more time instead of with working full time and being in school. Because that I've seen people do the 40 hours, and it's not I know it's just not possible.
It's grueling. I mean, even as a working professional now, and I have a wife, I have a home, all that good stuff. Even right now, you still have to find that balance.
Yeah,
I'm still learning, right? So it's still education. Even right now, the concept never really goes away. I'm just asking students right now, hey, figure out what that balance is now, because that's going to help you figure out what that balance is later, because you're going to have to incorporate other things that help with your growth as well. All right, a hobby of some sort, going cycling, playing basketball, going running, whatever it may be. Being in real estate, maybe you're in real estate as a side thing to what your true profession is. Getting connected in other peer groups, whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of balance that's needed in a student's life, and figuring that out early on will help you later on in life for sure.
Because if you also think about it, like most TV shows or movies we watch, the main character works 40 hours a day, and he or she, when they come home, like we always see them being tired and everything, and it's just seeing that it's not just a stereotype that they're tired from coming home, like, and then when they come home, it's actual reality, and just like imagining someone, it just doesn't seem possible, or it should definitely be discouraged by the school maybe to, or maybe encouraged to find a balance, like not necessarily discourage people, but encourage, if you work a lot, find a balance between working and schooling, because that's like one of the main things that it seems like people need to find.
Of course, yeah.
And it's so with that, we're going to end the episode here. Thank you so much, Rickey, for joining us this week and sharing your experiences and wisdom with us students here at Cal State Fullerton. So if you would like to connect with Rickey and other Titan alumni, make sure you join Titan Pro Network, which is our very own Titan LinkedIn site. Students and alumni can connect among our Titan family to get career advice, have your resume reviewed, and even find a mentor. So join Titan Pro Network today. And if you have missed any of our episodes, check them out on YouTube by searching for CSUF Alumni, and be sure to join us next Saturday at 4 p.m. on titanradio.org for Titan Alumni Talks.
Thank you.
And also, be sure to come to our homecoming event, November 16th, which starts at 5 p.m., where you can watch the men's basketball and the women's volleyball game and hang out with other students and alumni.